Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. As Marty mentioned, my name is Alexandra McGee. I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives at MCE, and I'm pleased to share one of those initiatives with you today called the Virtual Power Plant. You're about to hear, I think, a very transformational pitch. What you're going to hear is about a pilot that we're running in Richmond. However, the goal is to grow it to all the 4 counties that MCE serves. So that includes all of Contra Costa County, as well as Napa County, Marin County, and Solano County. So for those of you who are less familiar, MCE, we are a community choice aggregator, or CCA. We generate electricity, put it on the poles and wires, PG&E delivers that electricity. The difference is that now customers, users of that electricity, can now choose the portfolio of energy that they're buying from. So when we started in 2010, the default energy was about 12% renewable. Fast forward to today, we're about at 60% renewable and about 95% carbon free, which includes some bigger hydroelectric energy, which we don't consider renewable, but carbon free in California. So I'm going to go a little bit of history, always good to pace ourselves. So starting last year, MCE was invited to participate in a CEC grant called the Advanced Energy Community based in Richmond, California. The goal here is to install a number of distributed energy resources listed here for your convenience, DERs for short. We call that rooftop solar, heat pump water heaters, which we've talked a bit about today, smart thermostats, smart plugs, even batteries and electric vehicles as well. The goal here is to install a number of these at various parts throughout the community. It could be in someone's garage, it could be in someone's parking lot, all of which can be aggregated together. So these are tiny little resources that are installed around. So rather than having one big power plant, which is on the side of the freeway, perhaps it takes a big land, you can visualize what it means to look at a power plant. Instead of a physical power plant, you would have a virtual power plant, which takes a bunch of these tiny little jigsaw puzzle pieces together in homes and businesses and commercial areas, and it ties them together digitally, virtually, in this virtual power plant, therefore creating these kind of small, quiet, clean pockets of power throughout the community that are aggregated together in order to create the same kind of energy capacity that you might otherwise have to use a lot of land and a lot of infrastructure to build out. So that's the goal. That's a virtual power plant. It's all of these small pieces woven together in a decentralized way to create capacity to provide grid support, provide clean energy, and provide resiliency. So we're starting in Richmond. That's where I think that we had a great presentation from Greenlighting earlier talking about wealth creation and modernizing housing stock, addressing the built environment, decarbonizing the built environment. So starting in Richmond allows us to have a very innovative approach to home ownership, which I'll talk about briefly, but also gets at that wealth creation, and also for the wonky people in the room, it also allows us to bypass meter data bottlenecks. So right now, everyone's got kind of a smart meter. CCAs don't have immediate access to the data from that meter. And so if we can kind of go directly to the devices themselves, rather than depending on that meter, you can have more instantaneous feedback and bypass a bottleneck and give you some more time for energy development. Okay, so quick primer on the grid, how it works. Normally, traditionally, you're only looking at this top line of the balancing of the equation. Usually you have supply and you have demand. And usually the only way to meet demand is by increasing or decreasing your supply. And CAISO keeps this in balance. It's its whole job is to keep this thing in balance, to make sure that the supply doesn't overload the demand, or that, demand very hot days, in the middle of summer with your heat waves, making sure that the demand doesn't overwhelm the supply. That's a traditional way of keeping the grid balanced. What is novel about what we're trying to do with this virtual power plant is the introduction of these lower hexagons, which is that you're creating a resource behind the meter. You're creating a resource at the customer level that's owned by the customer. This isn't, like I said, a big power plant on the side of the road. Instead, in your own home, you have the ability to shift load. If you have your own solar, maybe there's a battery or a heat pump water heater or just a smart plug, you're able to shift load to respond to grid signals. So if the grid is getting into a point where there's a lot of demand, maybe there is an upcoming possible brownout or outage. If you have enough of these participating households that can shift your own load in your own home, you can create additional grid resiliency benefits by minimizing the strain that you're putting on the grid. That's a new thing. Having a behind the meter capacity through this virtual power plant or also demand response is a new way to engage with the grid and a new way to keep it in balance. So what we're trying to do over here, we have kind of our longer term vision. Right now we're starting in Richmond. The goal is to get to all the 4 counties. But what we'd like to do in this phase 1 is 1.5 megawatts of this flexible load idea with 1 megawatt of solar, 2 megawatt hours of batteries. We're doing this in a way that creates wealth for the communities, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And here, important to this conference, is that we want to try to find ways to tap into additional sources of funding through the IIJA, through the IRA, to make sure that customers don't bear the brunt of the cost of doing this. So this is, if you look at all of MCE's service area, we do have about 63,000 solar customers already right now, and about 7,000 battery systems. All of those are operating independently. They are serving their own households. There's not this coordinated effort to create more community level benefit. And so if we can bring these into a VPP, then we're providing additional benefit to the customer, to the grid, and also to MCE. So participants, so let's make this real for a second. That was a little bit up in the air, a little bit philosophical. What does this mean for real people? So for the participants of this first phase of the VPP, there's kind of 3 categories. We have 10 first-time home buyers, 90 existing homeowners, and 20 local businesses. I do want to make a pitch for an innovative financial mechanism that the city of Richmond is using called the Social Impact Bond. I'd never heard about this before this project. I think it's very cool. It's a coordinated effort where a bond is issued to purchase formerly abandoned homes, retrofit them, fully modernize them with all these cool gizmos that I just talked about, and then sell it at a discount below market rate to first-time low-income homeowners. I know that was a mouthful. First-time low-income homeowners. And doing so in a way that is really intentional about the redlining we heard about earlier, about those interlacing aspects that lead to a community facing multiple barriers to that intergenerational wealth creation. So this is an example. This is Mitzi and her husband. She is a school teacher. He is a veteran, and they purchased what was before a formerly abandoned home is now completely renovated. It has all these really cool devices on the inside, and those devices are serving them. So not only does it reduce their cost of energy because you can shift things out of peak, more expensive times of the day, it's also increasing the value of the home by having these modern appliances, and they have a source of resiliency. So if the power ever does go out, I know Richmond had an outage over the winter. It was a short one, thankfully, but there was an outage. You can still have your lights on. So there's a value to that resiliency as well. So 10 of these homes will be fully refurbished, the whole shebang. 90 of the homes already have solar installed by Grid Alternatives. I saw Arthur in the room earlier. There he is, Grid Alternatives in the back, where Grid has already installed solar, and we're going back to them and saying, hey, let's get you more value out of that solar. Do you want a heat pump water heater? What does your house have the capacity to install? So each of those homes are getting a customized proposal with all of these equipment listed out, funded in part by MCE, in part by the CEC grant. Because what I neglected to mention is that for 10 years, MCE has been building out our own customer programs. That includes energy efficiency, EVs, heat pump water heaters. We already have rebates for some of these things. We get different funding sources. We want to weave all of the funding sources we already have together into a more comprehensive plan so that when we go back to a house, we have this checklist of things. What is your house capable of installing? And then go through and install that for them. So 10 new first time, 90 existing, and also 20 local businesses. When you look at the load shape and where you see the biggest possibility of benefit for the grid, targeting really peaky loads for businesses is key. Because you can have a whole bunch of homes together, but they kind of average out, they kind of have a similar load shape. But a business can have a super sharp ramp up during a grid critical part of the day. And so making sure that we target our local businesses that have maybe overproducing solar or very peaky type of load shape creates that value for the grid as well. So how to help? I think I probably have a minute or two left here. If you're excited by the virtual power plant, as I am, we are looking to expand it soon. This pilot is supposed to run through 2025, but we're laying the foundation to grow it faster than that. So if you like this, come talk to me. I would love to have additional partners or people who are interested in providing letters of support as we go after more grants for it. Also, if you are going after similar types of grants or kind of electrification or decarbonization, maybe we could provide a letter of support to your agency, it's your organization. So either way, if you're looking for funds or want to support us to find funds to build this out, please come talk to me. We're also looking for partners that meet the following criteria. There's this VPP is one aspect of the work that we do, but there's also electrifying our transportation, supporting public transportation, getting more HVACs out there. So we're looking for these kinds of partners. And then in general, please do ask your council about social impact bonds. I think that it's an underutilized financial mechanism. And if you're here representing, thank you. If you're here representing an organization and you haven't yet joined MCE's Community Power Coalition, that is a group that meets regularly to talk about issues in energy, in climate change, in local community politics. So that's another group that you can join to add your voice to the mix. We'd love to get your feedback on some of our programs. I believe that's it.
Thank you.